It's time, as Nancy said, for America to just say no to drugs.
So won't you join us in this great new national crusade?
God bless you, and good night.
We're back. That was, of course, the famous anti-drug message from President Reagan in the 1980s. But with Colorado and Washington State actually legalizing marijuana for recreational use, attitudes have clearly shifted in this country. Well, now President Obama himself has weighed in on the issue. Here's what he had to say in a profile piece by David Remnick in the latest New Yorker. Quote, "As has been well documented, I smoked pot as a kid." This is the president speaking. "And I view it as a bad habit and a vice, but very different from the cigarettes, but not very different from the cigarettes that I smoked as a young person up through a big chunk of my adult life. I don't think it is more dangerous than alcohol. I don't think it is more dangerous than alcohol." Well, it's a departure from what we've heard from administrations in the past, but the president offered this by way of explanation. Quote, "Middle-class kids don't get locked up for smoking pot, and poor kids do, and African-American kids do, and Latino kids are more likely to be poor and less likely to have the resources and the support to avoid unduly harsh penalties." Well, they're better lawyered, white kids are. Anyway, joining me now is the author of What Addicts Know, a friend of mine, Christopher Kennedy Lawford, and his cousin, who also joins us, former U.S. Congressman from Rhode Island, Patrick Kennedy, there he is, who heads up the Smart Approaches to Marijuana Project. I generally support the president on a lot of things. I mean, I'm famous for that or whatever, infamous for that, but the fact is I don't think he's right on this one, because I think people have addictive personalities, and some people react to freedom differently than others, and we better be ready for it, because it's coming now.
Well, there's no question, Chris. I mean, the two most damaging drugs on the planet are both legal: alcohol and tobacco. We don't need another legal drug. We don't know. All the evidence isn't in on marijuana. I agree with the president in terms of the consequences for some population groups as a result of this drug being illegal. And I also think that, quite frankly, if alcohol was illegal today, it wouldn't be legalized. It is a very damaging drug, and we need to look at that also.
Yeah, but it's been around a long time.
It has.
And let me go to Patrick Kennedy on this. It seems to me, I have to go, we all deal with our anecdotal experiences in life. I mean, that's how you talk from experience.
Right.
I've hung around guys that drank too much, and after they drank too much, would go look for dope around midnight. And so don't tell me booze wasn't a gateway to dope or to marijuana. And I don't have that much experience with the other stuff, but I do have that concern about the gateway issue. Your thoughts?
So first, Chris, you hit the nail on the head. Most of us know about this issue anecdotally. So what we need, Chris, is we need to know what the science tells us, the science of public health. So I think the president needs to speak to his NIH director in charge of drug abuse, Nora Volkow, because the NIDA director, Nora Volkow, would tell the president that, in fact, today's modern genetically modified marijuana, so it's much higher THC levels, far surpass the marijuana the president acknowledges smoking when he was a young person, so that he is wrong when he says that it isn't very harmful, because the new marijuana is not the old marijuana. And of course, the president is making this decision based upon his anecdotal experience. We need to have presidential decisions made based upon public health and the sound science that the federal government is invested in, which shows that this is very harmful. In fact, Chris, as my cousin Chris just mentioned, if it's legalized, we know rates of use will increase, availability will increase, and accessibility. And as you know, Chris, if you have a predisposition to addiction, this is going to be a gateway. And frankly, Chris, it's a harmful drug in and of itself. Like, I was lucky, Chris. I got in and crashed early because I used harder drugs. Marijuana is insidious. You could be using it for most of your life and not wake up to the fact that you're on a slow train to nowhere. And that's the damaging part about marijuana for our country.
Let me show the latest polling on this you're up against. According to the latest CNN opinion research polling, 55%, a majority of Americans believe pot should be made legal. That's an all-time high, but you can see just how dramatic the trend toward legalization really is if you look at the polling over the last 28 years. Since the Reagans made that famous Just Say No speech, support for the legalization of marijuana has risen 37 points. It's a dramatic upward climb.
We had, George Soros's effort with medical marijuana. That changed a lot of public opinion. We don't have, as Pat Patrick said, we don't have the science. And this is a drug that inversely affects young people. It affects them in terms of their ambition, in terms of psychosis, schizophrenia. We just don't have the science.
Okay, let's hit on that thing. Because talk about ambition, because it's a little elusive. You know, I do sort of believe that, by the way. I think dope, marijuana, makes you sort of vague out and sort of lose interest in tomorrow, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, where you're headed. I do believe that.
I live in Maui, and I can testify to that.
Yeah, well, I think it just makes you live for the moment.
That's right.
But Patrick, what evidence do we have? You say science. Do we have any science to say that a hard-working Harvard medical student, someone who's working their butt off to be an engineer, will slow down in their ambition because they've been smoking dope over time? Do we know that?
Yes, that there's hard science. National Institutes of Health funded New Zealand longitudinal study that showed loss of IQ points that would knock you from the top quadrantal of percentage of those who have IQ to the bottom percentage of those who have IQ. So the point is, it does affect IQ. But Chris, to the point of commercialization, the real issue here is starting a for-profit industry, much like tobacco had an incentive to hook kids to get them to smoke cigarettes. And frankly, today, alcohol has flavored alcohol for young people. They're advertising hard liquor on their advertisements on cable TV. I mean, if the president feels alcohol is worse than tobacco, what's he prepared to do? And I'll tell you, the president won't be able to do a thing. Okay. Why? Because alcohol is too powerful an industry to change. And right now, we have a chance to stop another for-profit industry from targeting our public health.
Oh, I'm listening to you guys a lot. Thank you. I respect so much what you're trying to say. Slow that train down. Thank you, Patrick Kennedy. Thank you, Christopher Kennedy Lawford. The name of your book?
What Addicts Know. What Addicts Know, and you do know a lot. Christopher, it is anecdotal, but it's really powerful. Christopher will be signing copies of the book, What Addicts Know, tomorrow night at the Barnes & Noble in downtown Washington. That's the Barnes & Noble right now near the White House, and we'll be right back after this.